I'd like to talk about the first part of the program. You chose to anchor the first part of the concert with Vaughan Williams' lush and gorgeous A Serenade to Music. It's one of my favorite pieces, and I think it is because I actually sang it with you when I was your student.
Well, thank you.
But and we've even entitled the concert A Serenade to Music. So would you please tell us what led you to program this work and why it's such a foundational part of this performance?
Number one, the Shakespeare text of this work is one of the most beautiful statements about how music affects our lives. And it goes through music being used for the hunt. It talks about just the sweet, beautiful sound of music. And even, there's a section of it I want to quote, because for somebody that thinks music's not important to them, it's a warning, because Vaughan Williams took from the first scene of the fifth act from the Shakespeare. And Lorenzo, the actor Lorenzo, warns people the following: the man that hath no music in himself, nor is not moved with concord of sweet sounds, is fit for treasons, stratagems, and spoils. The motions of his spirit are dull as night, and his affections dark as Erebus. Let no such man be trusted. So if you haven't experienced music, I suggest you go experience music to be sure you are that person. Maybe that took it to extreme, but most of the text is about just how music affects us. So it's a textual thing to begin with. Secondly, it's in a style, the early 20th century style of English music, and I love English music. I love Vaughan Williams. His Sea Symphony is one of my favorite works of all times, and I've conducted it numerous times, and I think I chose it for my final concert with Pacific Chorale. I love Vaughan Williams, and the English composers give us such a wonderful tradition of choral orchestral music. It's much more important, English music is much more important to us as choral conductors, choral orchestral specialists, because of all of the works that were commissioned in the English choral festivals over the years. Just wonderful literature. But the other issue is that I think we all listen to music now on our wonderful stereo systems in our homes, or at least if we are able to have a wonderful stereo system. But maybe we don't have a wonderful stereo system, but you can even have AirPods now and very small units where you hear absolutely beautiful recorded music. But there is not a recording in the world that can be better than the experience of listening to something being done beautifully live in a concert hall. And I think it's always good in programming to give the audience something serene, something, you leave your daily work of life, your daily work, and say, okay, I'm going to go to a concert. I'm tired. I just worked 8 hours, but I'll go to the concert. My wife wants to go or my husband wants to go. And so you go. But I think we have this wonderful experience of having Renée and Henry Segerstrom Concert Hall, one of the most beautiful concert halls, I'm convinced, in the country, and I've conducted in a lot of different concert halls. We have this beautiful space, and as Berlioz says, the space you work in is a part of the musical composition, and I believe that. So I like to gently bring the audience into that space and to be able to sit back and go. So very often when I'm doing an orchestral concert, I'll actually start the program with a small 3-minute a cappella piece by the choir, maybe by the same composer that I'm doing, or something that fits with the large work I'm about to do. Because we need that separation from outside to in the concert hall. Serenade to Music, to me, is the perfect example of that, with the solo violin and the solo lines mixed with the choir, and his beautiful style. I mean, to me, it's the perfect opener. And I named I said, let's just call the concert the Serenade to Music, because that's what it is. Yeah.
Well, and I love the idea of sweet harmony, the end of the piece. And I do want to say, I love that you shared that warning that Shakespeare wrote. But I really do believe if more people participated in music, listening, singing, playing, I think the world would be a much different place.
I think so.
A much kinder place, a much more loving place.
Yeah.
And you can tell when you come into the concert hall, you can tell that you've entered into this very gracious, gentle, expressive place.
Yeah.
And one thing I wanted to also say is that I agree with you that that coming to live music, you cannot replicate live music on a recording. To me, the experience of hearing overtone in Renée and Henry Segerstrom Concert Hall is one of my favorite things in life. And you can't hear that in a recording.
Yeah.
You can't feel your body vibrating in a recording, but you can in the concert hall. And I can't wait to hear what you do with the Vaughan Williams, with the full orchestra.
You know, it makes me think about the Mahler Eighth, where you just got a Grammy Award for providing one of the choirs for the performance with Dudamel, with the Los Angeles Phil. That recording is amazing. I mean, when you listen to it, you say, how could anybody turn this down and give it the first prize for the Grammys? But at the same time, I was in the performance in Disney Hall, one of the performances of that work that was recorded with Dudamel. And you cannot compare being in the hall, listening to that mammoth piece, in just, the biggest, except for Berlioz, the biggest choral orchestral piece ever written. The experience you have in the concert hall versus the experience you have, no matter how loud and how many speakers you have in your living room to listen to, it's better in the concert hall. And so I want to make the concert hall, in my own programming, I want to make the concert hall as welcoming as possible. Not jolting, but welcoming. I would rather jolt the audience later in the program, after they're in there, and say, okay, now let's jolt you a little bit, but let them settle there and just listen to the sweet sounds of music, which is the way the Vaughan Williams begins.